Eurozone and UK services PMI data was released today, sparking waves across European stocks. On the line now is Rob Dobson of Markit to walk us through today's data and its implications for those all-important ECB and BOE rate decision meetings tomorrow. Rob, firstly, if we compare the Eurozone versus the UK today, the UK opened the year with slower paced growth, yet is still outpacing the Eurozone average. Is this a trend expected to continue into 2014? And what are the economic implications of this relationship for either side of the channel?
This trend is very much likely to continue. What we're going to see is the UK to continue to perform quite strongly through 2014 as a whole, but the Eurozone is likely to have its average dragged down by some of its weaker performers, such as France. Now, the economic implications for the UK is that if the pockets of the Eurozone where we export to continue to perform quite lacklustre, then that could impact on our efforts to rebalance into deriving our growth from exports and away from consumer spending. For the Eurozone, obviously, if you have this situation where strong performers like Germany are performing much better than France and other countries, then that makes their ability to apply a one-size-fits-all monetary policy a lot harder to manage.
You mentioned Germany and France there, and concentrating on Eurozone services PMI, while Germany, as you mentioned, was the front-runner in today's data, it's Europe's second largest economy, France, which has placed a drag on an overall bright picture. As France continues to lag behind the Eurozone region, are there hints of stabilisation within the French economy, or is this to be a much repeated picture throughout the year?
I think compared to where it was towards the end of last year, we are seeing some hint of stabilisation in France. The pace of contraction, which our data is signalling, is much weaker than it has been over the last year or so. However, I still think that France is likely to lag behind the other Eurozone economies. France is one of those nations which still needs to undertake quite a lot of structural reform. On that basis, some of the comments made by President Hollande around New Year are very positive, but I think for France to come back to the fore of the Eurozone, we're going to have to see some of those words become actual action.
This data also takes employment within the services sector into account, an interesting indicator ahead of the BOE decision tomorrow, given Governor Mark Carney's attachment to unemployment figures. Will the elevated amount of new work in the UK play a positive factor here?
It probably will. Now, the Bank of England have been very much unemployment. That's been falling much sharper than what they anticipated. In fact, we're almost at the point where we are going to breach that 7% indicator which they were always talking about. So they've been making some moves to soften that in recent months. I think if we see those new orders to the UK continue to rise strongly, economic growth continuing to perform pretty strongly, then if that translates itself into higher inflation and rising prices, which isn't the case at the moment, the Bank of England may start to act. But at the moment, I think they're going to spend more time trying to give reason as to why they're going to continue to support the UK economy going forward.
And similarly, how will today's news of the Eurozone's fastest pace of economic expansion since 2011 bode for tomorrow's ECB rate meeting?
I think the ECB will see this as a very positive effect. They've been hoping that the Eurozone recovery will gain some traction for some time now. I think they'll be very worried still about the divergence of performance between the nations. Again, a situation where the largest Eurozone economy is very strong, but its second largest is still relatively weak, makes managing policy across the currency union as a whole much more difficult. I don't see the ECB making any movement tomorrow, given what's happened. But again, I think they'll welcome the fact that some growth is coming back, and they'll hope that that will start to spread to countries such as France in the future.
Rob, many thanks for your comments today. That's all from me for now here at Dukascopy TV, but I'll be back tomorrow to look at the flurry of Australia data, so see you then.